As Americans, we really rely heavily on our neighboring countries, both Canada and Mexico, for a large percentage of our groceries in this country. So everything from produce, fruits and vegetables, to dairy products, grains, and meat products, a large portion of our food supply are imported from both Canada and Mexico. So what do the tariffs that are being enacted by the Trump administration mean for you and your grocery budget? On Saturday, the White House confirmed that President Trump will impose a 25% tariff on goods from Mexico and Canada, two of the largest suppliers of agricultural products to the US. I know that all of us have been concerned about rising grocery prices for quite some time, and so these 25% tariffs really have a significant chance of raising our grocery prices even more. But what can we do about it? Okay, so future Jen here. Things are rapidly changing. I just filmed this video yesterday afternoon and I'm getting ready to post it today. And I've read on the news today that the tariffs against Mexico and Canada are on hold for 30 days. So disregard that part of the video that I talked about. However, they still could be enacted if a negotiation can't be reached in another 30 days. I also still think that a lot of this information in the video pertains to just stocking up on items in general if they are a good price. So I just wanted to put that in here to let you guys know that the news has changed, but still some great tips in this video, so keep watching. So just to kind of break this down, in terms of fruit, Mexico is the largest importer of that, totaling $10.8 billion last year, as well as vegetables. Mexico imported $9.6 billion worth of vegetables to the United States last year. Canada imported $8.6 billion worth of grains, as well as $6.4 billion worth of livestock and meats. And Canada is a huge supplier of poultry here to the US as well. So today we are here at Aldi. I have some tips for you on how we can kind of stock up on some of these items. I'm going to stock up on several things myself. We'll see what we can find before the prices are probably going to go up even more. So if you're a big avocado eater, the first thing you probably want to check on stocking up on is avocados, and we'll talk about how to store those later. But Mexico does import a huge amount of avocados to the United States. The next one is bell peppers. A lot of those are imported from Mexico as well. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up 2 packages of the tricolor bell peppers. Blueberries are something else that is sometimes imported from Mexico. My Aldi did not have those. These were from Peru, but I'm going to go ahead and pick up a couple packages anyway. Zucchini is another thing that I noticed. Just make sure that you check the labels. Pretty much on almost all produce products, it's going to tell you where the produce came from. Jalapenos are another thing that is commonly imported from Mexico. And then I went ahead and picked up a package of green peppers as well. Potatoes are another thing depending on which potato you're looking at. These particular yellow potatoes I noticed were imported from Canada, but obviously a lot of our potatoes come from here in the United States, Idaho and Wisconsin, other places like that. Tomatoes, super common imported ingredient from Mexico, like these cherry tomatoes. I already talked about zucchini, but squash is another thing that I noticed was imported. So both butternut squash and spaghetti squash, which you could definitely cook and freeze for long-term storage. This granola, which I love from Aldi, is also imported from Canada, as well as the maple syrup. Canada does import a ton of maple syrup into the United States, and that's something that definitely has a long shelf life. I also noticed that these brioche buns were imported from Canada, and those store really well in the freezer. And then honey is another thing. This is not super high quality honey, but you can see it's a product of Canada, USA, and Argentina. Nutella is also made in Canada, and that's definitely something that you can stock up on that keeps in the pantry if you use a lot of that. Oils are another thing. I always like to keep canola or vegetable oil on hand. That is imported from Canada at Aldi. And then I was told this Pueblo Lindo brand, or I read online that this is something that is made in Mexico and imported as well. And then just as a bonus, I stocked up on some chicken because they had all of these chicken tenderloins for 50% off. So that was a great deal. Let's go home. I'm going to show you everything that I got and what I'm doing with it. All right, so here is everything that I got from Aldi. Just to clarify, when I say stock up, I don't mean go and like panic buy a bunch of stuff, okay? Because that's not what we're doing. What I am personally doing is just buying a few extra of the things that I know my family and I already use. And a lot of this stuff I'm gonna explain, you can't really preserve for a super long time anyway. Some of it you can freeze and things like that, but I'm just trying to stock up on a few of the things that we normally use just in case prices go up exponentially in the next month or so. So I did get these strawberries, even though these at my Aldi are not a product of Mexico. I was looking at Walmart today and the ones at Walmart are. So it's definitely gonna depend on your grocery store, but I did grab 2 packages of these. Strawberries are great because you can freeze them. One thing I wanna say about produce items is that you can't typically freeze produce items and then thaw them out and eat them raw again. So if you're planning on stocking up and freezing some of these things like peppers, strawberries, blueberries, stuff like that, you're not going to be able to thaw it out and eat it raw. The water content of vegetables is typically too high. So when you freeze fresh produce, all of the water turns into ice crystals, and then when you thaw it back out again, it gets kind of mushy. So that's why when I was buying the peppers, obviously some of them will keep in the fridge for another 2, 3, 4 weeks, but some of them I'll chop up and freeze. Same thing with cucumbers. Obviously you can't freeze these. However, you can quick pickle them and store them in the refrigerator, so that can extend the life of them a little bit. I did also get some limes, and I can't tell. So some of these say that they were packed by somewhere in California, but I don't know if that necessarily means that they're a product of California. But I did get those because limes and lemons keep really well in the refrigerator, and I'm always using them, so I figured why not grab some. You can freeze avocado. That's, I think, something that people don't know. You can vacuum seal and freeze avocado and then thaw it back out and mash it up like you normally would for guacamole. I also got some tomatoes. These are also a Mexico product. These are the Constellation tomatoes. Now, tomatoes are another thing that is probably not going to be like a huge stock up food. Really, the only good way to preserve tomatoes is to can them. So like cook them and, you know, hot water bath, can them. I've personally never frozen tomatoes before. I suppose you could probably freeze them and then thaw them back out and turn them into a sauce or something like that if you wanted to. I personally think, like, for me, I would rather just stock up on canned tomatoes and make my life easier that way. But I did pick this package up just because it's something we can use for the next couple of weeks. I did get quite a few peppers. This is something that is heavily imported to the US from Mexico because of where these grow. And so I got 3 green peppers and then 2 of the tricolor packs. These are actually a cheaper price at Aldi than they are at Walmart, which is why I got them there. Like I said, you can chop these up and freeze them and use them in soups and stews and different things like that. I did grab 3 mangoes, and I actually think these are actually a product of Peru, but I was reading online that some mangoes are from Mexico, so you can check at your local grocery store. Obviously, mangoes aren't something that you're going to keep in the fridge or on the counter for a super long time, but you can freeze these and they work super great in smoothies. One thing I would recommend if you're gonna stock up on like mangoes and avocados, buy, like, these are like super hard, right? And so it's gonna take a while for these to get ripe. So even if you stock up on a couple bags, you know, use them as they ripen. And then once they get to the point where they're fully ripe, that's when you can vacuum seal and freeze them. I was also reading online that I haven't verified this yet, or I haven't found a place to verify it because it says that it's distributed and sold by Aldi in Illinois. However, online I was reading that this Pueblo Lindo brand is actually produced in Mexico. So this is something that might be subject to a price increase also. We don't use corn tortillas a super heck of a lot, but I always like to keep them on hand. And tortillas are something that you can freeze. So regardless of whether it's a flour tortilla or a corn tortilla, you just throw them in a Ziploc bag and put them in the freezer, thaw them out, and they'll be good as new. I did get some fresh garlic also. So this is actually a product of China, and I did not say this in the intro, but the new proposed tariffs also imposed a 10% tariff on all Chinese products, or most Chinese products. So this is something that, you know, could be subject to that as well. I did decide to stock up on some broccoli. So broccoli is something that we use quite frequently. Same thing with most vegetables. You can freeze this. However, you probably do want to blanch it first. So put it in boiling water for a few minutes and then add it to an ice bath before you freeze it. I've also found that broccoli, if you store it like dry, and even if you wash it and dry it really well and then vacuum seal it, it will actually keep in the refrigerator for quite a long time. It's a very hardy vegetable. I love this I can't even speak. I was going to say oats. I love this granola from Aldi, and I was actually looking in the store and it says it's a product of Canada. So I decided to pick up a bag of that. This is not necessarily, well, actually, if these come from Mexico, I'm not sure if they do or not, so don't quote me on that. However, I am going to start stocking up more on like rice and dried beans and things like that. In fact, I just made a batch of beans today to put into the fridge and the freezer. I actually need to price these in comparison with Walmart. This is a 2-pound bag. I'm pretty sure these are a bit cheaper at Aldi than they are at Walmart, but I have to double check for sure. Oil is another thing that can be imported from Canada. This particular canola oil is imported from Canada, and I often use canola or vegetable oil in baking, or sometimes if I'm gonna fry something. So I got a bottle of that. These wheat thin crackers, the Aldi brand, are also produced in Canada, so I got a box of those. Some honey. This is obviously not like super high quality honey, but if it's something that I'm going to keep in the pantry as a backup stock, I'm not necessarily concerned about it being super high quality, so I got that. Maple syrup, obviously heavily imported from Canada, so I decided to get a bottle of this. I did get just a bag of sugar and flour. I think I'm going to pick up some, sugar and flour every couple times I go to the grocery store, just so I can have it on hand in the pantry. If you have flour in your pantry and you keep yeast on hand, you can make bread. Super easy. That like you don't need many other ingredients. If you keep flour and sugar and oil on hand, you can make a lot of baked goods. So definitely something to keep in mind there. And then this asparagus is from Mexico also. It's another thing that you probably don't want to freeze raw, but if you blanch it and shock it for, a couple, or, boil it for a couple minutes in hot water, blanch it in cold water, ice water, then you can freeze it and it'll cook pretty well. These particular blueberries are not from Mexico, but I do think that some of the ones that we get here in the US are. I did get 2 packages of these anyway because I will wash them up. I'll probably freeze part of them for either muffins or smoothies, and then just keep the others in the fridge for us to eat this week. And then I was kind of just like looking through the store to see if I could find other items that were from Canada or Mexico. And actually these brioche buns from Aldi, which we like quite a bit, are also a product of Canada. I bought these previously. They're kind of a more fancy version, obviously, of like a hamburger bun, but these keep really well in the freezer. All you gotta do is put them in a Ziploc bag, take out most of the air, throw them in the freezer, and then you can pull them out, thaw them, and use them as you normally would. So this is the only avocado that I have that's ripe right now. So I just wanna kind of show you an example of this and how you can freeze it. So I'm just going to scoop out the halves and then freeze it that way intact. I do have my Food Saver vacuum sealer out here. You don't need to have the Food Saver brand. I actually had a different brand many years ago. And actually you don't even need a Food Saver at all. You can just do this with a Ziploc bag and take out most of the air. This is kind of a bigger bag because these are the only size I have right now, but say a prayer that my machine's gonna work today. Okay, so it's done when you can see all the air is sucked out of it, and then you just push the seal and you've got your vacuum packed avocados. So make sure you label these, throw them in the freezer, because you'll definitely want a date on them. Obviously you can see what these are. You don't necessarily have to label what it is, but label the date. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on the broccoli. So I've got 2 packages of the broccoli that I got washed in my salad spinner here. I'm just gonna transfer that to a big bowl. And then I've got this big stock pot out here. So this is a Cuisinart stock pot and it has a strainer in it. So typically I use it for pasta, but it's also great for blanching veggies. So that's what I'm gonna use to boil the broccoli for a few minutes. And then while that's boiling, I'll fill this up with ice and water. That way I can remove it and transfer it to the ice bath. So for the other package of broccoli, I'm washing this up now. And I'm going to make a broccoli salad, which I wouldn't necessarily say that is a way to like preserve broccoli. However, a lot of these things, if you wanted to, buy them and incorporate them into your meals within the next few weeks, that would be a good idea as well. So in this bowl, I've got some Miracle Whip. This is one of the only couple recipes that I actually use Miracle Whip for instead of mayo, and some sugar and some vinegar. Other ingredients in this broccoli salad are bacon, almonds, and grapes. Add our washed up broccoli. And then I had about a third of a package of bacon in the refrigerator left over. So I'm just gonna crisp that up and then we'll crumble it and add that to the salad as well. Sliced up some grapes and added those. After my bacon was done cooking, I just let it cool. It was nice and crispy, so I went ahead and crumbled it over the salad, and then I paid the bacon tax to Murphy because he was too adorable. I'm gonna go ahead and start blanching my broccoli in my big pot of water. So just adding that, you definitely do wanna blanch vegetables before you freeze them. It helps preserve their texture and their flavor and their color as well. Okay, so my broccoli is done. Oh, that's hot. The reason why I like to use this big pasta pot is because it's just super easy to transfer the broccoli over to the ice bath. It's got the built-in strainer. Okay, I'm just gonna leave this in there until it cools completely, and then I'll drain it and put it on probably a cookie sheet to dry. I'm gonna let my broccoli drain on a cookie sheet that I lined with a paper towel before I go ahead and pack it into bags so it's not super wet when I go to freeze it. Next, we're gonna do our asparagus. So I'm just gonna drop that in the boiling water for 1 to 2 minutes. So really for green vegetables, it only takes about 1 minute to blanch. You just have to really keep an eye on it, and when it turns bright green, it's ready to come out. I'm just trying to seal my asparagus in a vacuum sealer bag. I'll talk more about this at the end, but I had such trouble with my food saver today. Anyway, back to that chicken that I decided to stock up on at 50% off. If you want to know how to take the tendon out of these chicken tenders, you just grip it with a paper towel and you put the tendon in between the tines of the fork and it rips out super easily. I showed you guys that in a video I just posted not too long ago, so just sharing that again in case anyone doesn't know that. I did go ahead and pack my chicken tenders into 2 freezer bags, and then I decided to cook part of this as well, just because we always like to have cooked chicken in the refrigerator. You can use it for so many different things. I use it a lot for quesadillas. Connor loves buffalo chicken quesadillas, so they're really great for that. You can use them in lunch boxes, on sandwiches, in salads, really a lot of things. So just cooking those with some foil on for the last few minutes. And then I'm going to go ahead and wash up my blueberries that I got in my salad spinner. Okay, I'm gonna make this quick pickle recipe to preserve some of these cucumbers. So I'll link it down below. I have my OXO grate and slice here. It comes with like 4 different blades. If you're looking for a mandolin, I highly recommend this one. I love it. It's got like a julienne blade and then 2 different grater blades, but I'm gonna use the one that slices because I like how uniformly and quickly it does it. So the recipe says 4 cups of cucumbers, so we're gonna see how much these 2 cucumbers make. Okay, so I used about 1 2/3 of a cucumbers to get 4 cups. I'm gonna add 1 cup of rice wine vinegar to this pot, 1 cup of water, 3/4 of a cup of sugar, and then I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of kosher salt. We'll stir this up and bring it to a boil. Okay, so I've got my cucumbers in here. I turned the heat off. I'm gonna cover this and let it sit for 10 minutes. So I've got a ball jar here with a funnel on the top. I'll link this down below. It's super useful. And then I'm gonna transfer the cucumbers to the jar and we'll pour the liquid over the top. So let me show you guys everything that I got prepped today. So I did go ahead and wash my strawberries and I just have them drying out here on a paper towel. I haven't decided if I'm gonna freeze some of these yet. I may or I may not. The blueberries, I'll probably just leave these in the fridge, and if they don't get eaten by the time they need to be frozen, I'll do that and then make smoothies or muffins out of them. I ended up cooking part of those chicken tenders that I purchased just because then we can have cooked chicken in the fridge this week for salads or quesadillas or whatever we want to make. And then here are my quick pickles. So I ended up getting this huge jar of cucumbers, and then I had some extra brine left over, and I had some radishes in the fridge that were about to go south, and so I decided, hey, why don't I just throw those in some brine too? So hopefully those are good. Here's our broccoli salad. That will be good for lunches or sides this week. I just decided to dice up 2 of the green bell peppers. So I have these in a Ziploc bag. Some of these things I have in Ziploc bags because my food saver stopped working. Like, it's been on the fritz lately and it got to the point where it wasn't sucking any air out of the bag. So I'm probably gonna have to get a new one. But I still do have some peppers over here. I'm probably just gonna stick these in the fridge and we'll try to use them within the next couple weeks, and I'll keep an eye on them. Just try to incorporate them into recipes, and then if I don't get them used by the time they head south, I will dice them up and put them in the freezer. I got 1 bag of chicken thighs and then 2 pretty good sized bags of the chicken tenders. So those will go in the freezer. This is my blanched broccoli. So I got 2 pretty big bags out of that. So I'll put this in the freezer. The thing that you want to keep in mind and why you want to blanch the veggies before you freeze them is because it will help preserve the color and the texture and the flavor of the vegetables. So we've got asparagus, 2 bags of broccoli, and then here is the avocado that I showed you guys earlier. I need to get this in the freezer. And then I also just cut up this container, 1 red bell pepper, 1 yellow bell pepper, and the rest of the cucumber, and we can use that for salads or lunches this week. So if you guys have any tips on preserving any of the items that I mentioned in today's video, or any other tips in general, let me know in the comments below. And if you guys are stocking up on anything, let me know also what it is in the comments below, because I'm always curious to hear that. And if y'all want to see my last what I eat in a day video, I've lost 23 pounds on semaglutide, I can put this video right here so you can click there.